Dynamics of the Russia-Ukraine conflict have changed since the election of Donald Trump as the US president. Now, at the same time, the world is grappling with another issue. It's basically the tariffs imposed by the US president on countries including Sri Lanka. Where does Russia fit into this? And is Russia willing to support countries like Sri Lanka at this case? We have a lot to talk, and I have with me His Excellency Dzhagaryan, the Russian ambassador in Colombo. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
How does Russia view the election of Donald Trump as the US president?
Just it's a little bit positive because the election of President Trump has opened a new window of opportunity in our bilateral relations. President Trump promised to do a lot of efforts to stop this war in the Ukraine, and also to improve relations with the Russian Federation. They had 2 telephone conversations in February and March, and we had some rounds of negotiations in Saudi Arabia with the participation of my minister, Sergei Lavrov, with his American counterparts, Marco Rubio, and other high-ranking officials. We had also another round of negotiations also in Saudi Arabia, and just today we conducted very good conversations in Istanbul between delegations of the foreign ministers of the 2 countries. We have made first steps towards a normalization of bilateral relations because they were just spoiled much by previous administration of Biden, and we appreciate President Trump's aspiration to make these relations better. But let's wait. We will judge by practical steps.
What was Russia's view on the highly unorthodox exchanges between Ukrainian President Zelensky, US President Trump, then Vice President Vance in front of US media?
It was a very interesting meeting, very interesting conversation. Once again, it proves that Zelensky isn't ready for any constructive dialogue. He isn't ready for peaceful solution of the crisis, and he has no experience. He is Canadian. He has no experience. That's why Ukraine should be ruled by another gentleman, very serious, very constructive. But to be frank, I don't want to comment on this issue. It was like Asiatic. He's Canadian. What do you expect of him?
So both Russia and Ukraine agreed to halt attacks on vessels sailing on the Black Sea, and Russia also promised the United States to halt attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. But what conditions are really necessary for Russia to agree on a full ceasefire deal?
We agreed with American my president, on March 18 to stop attacks against energy infrastructure. And we are very committed to our promises, to our obligations, unlike Ukrainians who are attacking our energy infrastructure just every day, almost every day. And we send all necessary information to Americans. Now it's up to them to put pressure on Ukrainians. So far, we don't see any action from the American side. But he was criticizing Russians for bombing Ukraine, and he says nothing about Ukrainian attacks against the Russian Federation. I expect our American partners to be more fair in this regard. Once again, he proved, Zelensky, this dictator, that we couldn't rely on him. He is a big liar. And also, which is more important, we don't consider him as a legitimate president of Ukraine. His tenure was expired at the end of May, and we insist on elections, new elections in Ukraine.
But don't you think that the US is genuinely making an effort in order to achieve on a ceasefire with regard to the Russia-Ukraine war?
It's not Russian-Ukrainian war, let's be frank. If it was a Russian-Ukrainian war, we would have defeated Ukraine very soon. It's war between Russia and collective West. Because without full-scale support of the Western countries, now, first of all, European Union and NATO, you see that we would be able to put the end to this war. But we are in favor, but there are some nuances, and some of our ideas and some of our demands. Because Ukrainians and their European sponsors, we cannot rely on them, because before we made a lot of deals with them. For example, Istanbul deal. which was just made in 2022. And Boris Johnson came to in Kiev and spoiled everything. And some other deals with Ukrainian regime. But they are liars. That's why it's very difficult to trust them. We need very serious guarantees.
Where recently, addressing an occasion, you said that some of the sanctions imposed on Russia needs to be removed for Russia to help countries like Sri Lanka. So how optimistic is Russia towards the Trump administration working to lift these sanctions imposed by the US and its allies?
You know, we are not asking, please leave the sanctions, because sanctions is a lose-lose game. During the first meeting in Saudi Arabia, with the participation of Minister Lavrov, with his American counterparts, we told them that because of the sanctions, the damage for American companies was more than $300 billion US. Can you imagine? It's a lose-lose game. But it's up to the Americans or Europeans. If they want to lift sanctions, it's okay. If they don't want to lift sanctions, we can survive with the help of our friends and our partners. But once again, we are waiting, and it's up to the American administration, because we need some lifting of sanctions against our agricultural sector to boost the export of our fertilizers, also wheat and some other agricultural products. It's very important, not only for the Russian Federation, but also for the countries of the global south, which is very important to decline the prices.
So what is Russia's view on the tariffs imposed by the United States on a global scale?
You know, we are of course concerned, because we can see that there is a very negative impact on the economy of many countries, including Sri Lanka, because tariffs which were imposed against your country are very high, and we know that your government, together with other political parties, including opposition, trying to make some efforts to make some relief. Of course, it can lead to many negative consequences. That's why we will see. As to the Russian Federation, no tariffs on the Russian Federation, as you know, because no trade, no tariffs.
Against this backdrop, is there any way that Russia can really think of assisting countries like Sri Lanka in the wake of this whole tariff situation?
I think Sri Lanka, like other countries, you shouldn't put all the eggs into one basket. Do you understand? You must diversify your foreign trade with many countries. And there is a golden opportunity, but for you it's very difficult, for us also, because of these numerous sanctions. They were imposed more than 3,000 sanctions against the Russian Federation. And in this condition, it's very difficult to develop a trade cooperation and so on. But let's wait, we will see what will happen in future, because everything will depend on the battlefield. You understand? And we continue our offensive, and I do believe that our victory will come very soon. I have no doubt.
You're serving as the ambassador of the Russian Federation to Sri Lanka for more than 2 years now. Based on your observations, what sectors do you find in Sri Lanka that the Russians can really explore and invest?
You know, we have some ideas, and recently there was a business delegation from India, when our trade representative, he's based in New Delhi, but he covers also Sri Lanka. He came here with his colleagues, and we just made some proposals to our Sri Lankan colleagues, and we are just discussing some possible fields of our possible cooperation. And you know, we also just proposed many other projects, but still Sri Lanka is not ready. I made one of your newspapers publish my small article under the title, "The ball is in the court of Sri Lanka." For example, MPP, I mean nuclear power plant, not political party. It was, I think, once again, it's my opinion, it's up to you, to your side, to decide. But I do believe that Sri Lanka, as an island country, you need just alternative sources of energy, not to rely only on gas, on oil, on wind, on solar energy, but nuclear is also. Let's start from the small project. We have very good cooperation with even with your neighbors, with India, with Bangladesh. We started in Myanmar, We have good experience in Turkey, in Iran, where I served as 11 years as ambassador. But once again, we don't put pressure. It's your legitimate right to decide whether are you ready or not. And very important, to prevent the interference of the third countries into our bilateral cooperation. I don't want to name the countries, but you understand.
You explained about the nuclear power plant, but you might have some sort of understanding why the Sri Lankan government was really lethargic about this proposal.
No idea. I don't comment on the ideas of other countries, of the other governments. Better to address your question to them. But I respect any decision adopted by the government, because there may be some other reasons they cannot even put it under consideration. But we had some rounds of exchange of this case in the virtual mode. But so far, no final decision from your side. But we are ready.
Do you have any optimism about the new government?
Diplomats must be optimists all the time. Once again, we will judge by practical deeds, not by slogans.
Sri Lanka's application to BRICS is another topic that was discussed for some time, where it was initially said that the application was rejected, but later on the embassy itself clarified that it is not and the application is under review. So what does this application under review really means, and what conditions are really necessary for a country like Sri Lanka to gain BRICS membership?
Last October I met with His Excellency Honorable President Anura Kumara Dissanayake and just handed over personal invitation from President Putin to visit Kazan city, the capital of Tatarstan, a BRICS summit, and just I was explained that you were in just it was a few days before your general elections, and he couldn't go abroad. And former Foreign Secretary Mrs. Aruni Dzhagaryan visited Kazan, and she had some meetings in Russian Federation. It wasn't rejected. Now we informed your embassy in Moscow what your side should do. But now, in this year, 2025, the current president of BRICS is Brazil. First of all, must talk to Brazilian presidency, and also for application, you need consent of all member states. It's very important. You must follow through some stages. But once again, it wasn't rejected.
Were there any objections by member states?
I have no information. From our side, there are no objections. I cannot comment on the position of other countries.
And did Sri Lankan President's refusal to attend the summit?
No, it wasn't refusal. He was busy. He was busy, as I was explained, because we were just a few days before general elections. It was in October. And we understand, because he was very busy, and his schedule was very full of different meetings and so on. That's why Foreign Secretary Aruni Dzhagaryan was just obliged to go to Russia to participate in this meeting.
That didn't have any sort of impact to Sri Lanka's application?
No.
In early February this year, you called on Sri Lankan Energy Minister Kumara Jayakodi and handed over the invitation to attend the Russian Energy Week in October this year. So what sort of benefits will this Energy Week have to Sri Lanka?
We can discuss many issues on the sidelines of this meeting, because in 2022, former Minister Susil Primajayanta visited Moscow before my coming here, and he had some meetings with the people from private Russian oil and coal companies, those who were providing, just can't provide oil and coal. And we conduct such Russian Energy Week every year in October. Unfortunately, in 2023, 2024, no one went to participate in Moscow. Also, I just handed over to Mr. Jayakodi invitation to go to Moscow in October, and we are waiting for confirmation.
Does Russia export crude to Sri Lanka?
No, it's a business of private companies. It's not state-owned companies. That's why they don't report embassy what they are doing, and we just respect their privacy. It's a very sensitive issue.
The previous government decided to lease the Mattala Rajapaksa airport to a Russian firm and an Indian firm to be operated as a joint venture for 30 years. What's the latest on that deal? Were there any discussions, or that project proposal is dead in the water.
A Russian company which participated in this project initially, the airports, the regional airports, if I translate it correctly, they cooperated with Indian company, but then they stopped their participation. Exactly, I don't know what are the reasons, because once again, they are a private company. We don't interfere into their businesses, and just they are dealing with the government. That's why, once again, we don't intervene with the activity of private companies. I would like them to see on the Sri Lankan landscape, but maybe from the economic point of view or some other reasons, or maybe as a result of the activity of some third countries, it's very difficult.
So does the sanctions imposed on Russia, did this have some sort of impact to this?
Of course. Of course. You know, from the very beginning of my presence here, one of my ideas was to try to implement MIR, Russian Credit Payment System. MIR, we call it Russian in Russia, and it's being used in some countries, because there are a lot of Russian tourists coming here, and they cannot use this card system, and they are just forced to bring some cash, which is not very suitable. But as you know, the countries who are just implement this system, they are subjected to secondary sanctions of the United States. So it was by previous American administration, not the current one. So they have created a lot of problems for Russian business, and not only, but also they have created a lot of obstacles for our bilateral trade with countries of the global south, including Sri Lanka.
If the sanctions are lifted, how can Russia basically assist Sri Lanka?
I don't believe that they will be lifted very soon, especially from the European Union. I don't believe.
Isn't Russia willing to negotiate with the European Union in this regard?
No, because they are dominated by hawks. They are in favor of continuation of war. They want to defeat Russia on the ground field, on the battlefield. It's impossible. It's impossible. And they want to deploy their forces on the Ukrainian soil. And we told them, any foreign troops on the Ukrainian soil will be a legitimate target for Russian missiles. Once again, any foreigner, military foreigner deployed on the Ukrainian territory will be a legitimate target for Russian missiles. I think it's not necessary to repeat it many times. Right. We are not joking. Right. First of all, I would like to blame Britain and UK and France. The militarist approaches. They should focus on their domestic problems. They have a lot of problems inside their countries. Migration, inflation, and so on. And enough is enough. I think the people of the countries are fed up with their destructive policy. It's impossible to defeat nuclear power. Impossible.
When topic of Russia is discussed, it is often said that Russia is a communist country. Do you agree with that?
No, it was first of all never been a communist country. It was socialist country before 1991. Now we have partial political system. There are many parties, including Communist Party, and just we have market economy. We are a democratic country. I started my serving in the diplomatic mission in the foreign minister of the Soviet Union. So it was in 1986. At that time, I was member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. It was a must. For us, it was a must. It was another system, whether you like it, you don't like it. But after 1991, 1992, the system was changed dramatically. Now we have no right to be a member of any political party, and I'm very happy with that. Because we are neutral, we are serving not for any party, we are serving for my country, we are serving for my people. But it doesn't mean that political parties don't serve for the country, for the people. It's a political process. In Sri Lanka is a democratic country with many political parties. You understand me quite well.
Sri Lankan tourism sector stakeholders allege that there are foreign tourists visiting Sri Lanka are engaged in jobs without proper job permits, basically tourism sector related jobs. And they also say that Russians are there in the list. Has the Russian embassy received complaints with this regard? Or if that is the case, is Russia willing to intervene diplomatically, the embassy?
Diplomatically, we cannot intervene because the tourists are coming here. Not only tourists, there are some people who just have just some permission to stay here for a long time. And if they violate, and we always keep saying officially, and it's our appeal to Russian citizens, please, you must respect local traditions and local law. If you violate, you are deported, and we don't intervene. It's your legitimate right, as well as they do it in many other countries, migration and some other, committing any criminal case. But, of course, we intervene when there are some abuses against Russian tourists here from local people. It also happens. That's why we are in very close contact with the diplomatic police, with the foreign ministry. And once again, if someone violates local law, they should be deported. It's very logical.
So meaning Russia has no problem with Sri Lanka using its domestic laws to tackle such issues?
No. We respect it. If you come to the island, to any foreign countries, it's not important, Sri Lanka or any other country, you must be committed to local law, just not to violate it. It's very clear.
The foreign policy document that was approved by a decree of President Putin in March 2023 mentions the support of regional and sub-regional integration within friendly multilateral institutions, dialogue platforms, and regional associations in Asia Pacific, Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East as a priority. So where does Sri Lanka fit into this?
We are just, you are a member of many regional organizations like BIMSTEC, like IURA, and some other countries. And just, I think you will continue just your cooperation in many of these regional organizations. Like, for example, recently there was a summit of BIMSTEC in Thailand. And we are ready to cooperate with Sri Lanka. Just for example, if you will show any interest towards Shanghai Cooperation Organization, for example. Or maybe, as we mentioned, BRICS. But as for BRICS, first of all, you must talk to Brazilian presidency right now, because last year we were the president of BRICS.
Ambassador, it was an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for talking to us amidst your busy schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you.